All right. So last week, your action step was to create a systematic procedure for tracking data during your tracking not watching. And I noticed today during our observation that you guys had that implementation in play. How's it going?
I think it's going well. I feel like it gives me a better idea of which kids to go and check in on consistently throughout the lesson.
I think it's also going well. I think the first week we tried it, we had to figure out how to use it for whole class, how to use it for rotations. So I think we developed a system, and I think the form you helped us develop really caters to both. Like, it's malleable. I could even use it in interventions. So it's really like a one form fits all. And I think we figured out a way to make it efficient without making it feel overwhelming, like an overwhelming influx of data. So yeah, it's going well.
Yeah, I noticed that both of you were using the same clipboard, and it was pretty seamless as you would transfer. So during our collaborative feedback meeting, what we do is we write down all the glows as we're observing the video, and we also write down areas of opportunity. And then once the video is done, we go ahead and share out collaboratively and defend what we think is the highest leverage action step for this week.
Okay. Can it be outside of these areas that you asked us to look at specifically?
Absolutely, and sometimes it just organically works out that way.
Okay, good.
Would you like to do that? Let's change it. Gabby, I know how to do that now.
All right, so let's start off with all of our strengths.
Well, some of the strengths that I've noticed in the class, or I noticed in the classroom, the student-led discussion, having them just sort of as soon as they finish go to the center keeps that lull from happening. So the fast kids are waiting for friends who need a few extra seconds. And I was really proud of the conversations they were having. I feel they were speaking in complete sentences and defending their answers, versus at the beginning of the year, you would hear them and they would go up and they would say, I got, or I got, So really, it was nice to actually watch that, because when they're in the center, usually I'm floating to the kids who are still sitting down. And I tried to keep an ear, but I got to focus on that, so I really liked that. I liked all of their because, so all of their whys.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
Did you work on those complete sentences with them?
Yes, yeah. It's something we even still now practice daily, and usually before I send them to the center, as they start their discussion, I try to give a sentence frame.
So it is an incredibly valuable EL activity, and it changes the pace for the kids too.
My goals are similar, but I said students were using complete sentences, using academic vocabulary. They were explaining their answers instead of just saying like I got. I thought Gabby was really positive. Her tone was really positive, and she was like precisely phrasing like what she was liking, what the students were doing.
In addition to all of those things, they were getting multiple at-bats with that information by being able to talk to different students. You're building culture when you talked about trusting them to be having conversations there. The level of respect in your classroom is beautiful. I mean, when they went to their seats so quickly, and then when they put their iPads up, I mean, they are with you. It's moving to you.
I almost wanted to cry.
It really
During
is.
those 8 seconds, I kind of got teary-eyed a little bit.
Yeah,
And I was like,
it's such a beautiful
It was
thing.
so
And this
well.
is middle school.
Yes,
Yeah.
so well
Yeah.
executed. Like, it was beautiful. It was
Yeah.
like that's one of those moments in teaching where everything comes together, and you're just like, this is it. And it's
Yeah.
hard to describe what that it is, but that was it.
Yeah, I think you should be very, very proud. It's really nice.
got
Yeah,
some
just
great
said-
coaches.
Your voice, your presence, the respect that you show for them. I love that you literally lowered yourself and sat in the middle of them instead of standing somewhere you asked if you could move the conversation to another student. I mean, you're giving them what you're asking of them.
So building on that, the student ownership is incredible, especially over the E in case. They really are owning their explain. Your positive framing throughout the whole lesson, boards up, check for understanding so that they are being held accountable for each point in their work. You identified that critical mass error, and that's why you stopped and selected a method of doing an immediate intervention. So it was great. So let's move over to opportunities. What opportunities presented themselves in this video?
I think misreading the amount of students who knew that. So I did a whole class model, but even watching the video, seeing the kids that were agreeing, there was at least one in every squad. So I think I did a you do, like a teacher-led reteach, but it could have gone a little faster and maybe a little more engaging. I know the kids were engaged, but it was a little long-winded, I feel, for what we were trying to drive, and I feel it could have been put back on the students.
About how many students in there had that similar misconception?
I would say 10.
Since you had about 1/3 of the students with misconception and 2/3 who didn't, you had enough knowledge base in the room. What would be an alternate intervention that you could have done in that moment to kind of shift the heavy lifting to them and to those 2/3 who did understand the concept?
I feel like there's a couple. We could have done a simple pair share, even a pair share where they talked about the different strategies that would support why 1/5 1/2 was closer to 1 on a number line. We could do have them discuss the incorrect answer. Instead of just saying, because I put it on the screen, I put 1/5 is greater than 1/2, and then I did a whole class, is that true or false? And they said false. And of course it sounded like all of them got it because 2/3 did get it. But if I would have let them sort of chew over that, mold
So a
over
show
it a
call.
bit. Yes. And many less words, a show call.
That's what I wanted to say.
Yeah, thank you. Which is also actually on my data tracker, on my little list of items to do.
So if we back that up and did that as a show call, what are some of the things that you would have had the students do in that moment? How could you have presented this problem as a show call for them?
I could have given them the inequality 1/5 is greater than 1/2 and told them to disprove that or prove it, right? So not sort of sway either side.
Right.
Prove to me whether this is true or false, and then have them work it out. And I mean, I could say, maybe not. Like, I could prompt them with use a model, use an underline, use something. Use something.
Yes. So in the interest of CRA, how could you have brought CRA in for them to debate and deliberate their answers?
Continue to build off the model that Victor shared. But we moved to the A rather quickly.
Does anyone else have an opportunity that they think rises above that particular opportunity?
No, I had the same thing,
Yeah.
is that the why should put the why back to the kids rather than whole class.
Okay, so action steps. let's design it together. When we design an action step, we always start with the what, and then we do the how. So first of all, we're gonna start with designing the what.
And